It started with a group call, Mom's voice overly cheerful, Dad nodding quietly in the background, and Callie chiming in halfway through, cradling one of the twins. "Marin," Mom said, "we've been talking, and we think you deserve a break. You're always working, you never take time for yourself." That alone made me pause. My family never noticed things like that. She continued, "So we booked you a little getaway, a beach resort, 4 nights, everything covered, our treat." I blinked at the screen. Wait, really? Dad gave a small smile. "You've earned it, kiddo." I wanted to ask why, what had changed, but instead, I let myself nod and smile and even say thank you. I ended the call feeling dizzy. For once, they had done something for me. Not Callie, not the kids, me. I took the rest of the afternoon off, opened tabs for beachwear, SPF lip balm, and those paperback novels I never made time for. I even ordered a new carry-on suitcase, something pastel and firm-shelled, that I imagined rolling beside me down a polished airport floor. For the first time in ages, I didn't feel invisible. The next few days were full of lists and little splurges. I booked time off work, printed out the itinerary Mom had sent me, complete with confirmation numbers. Got my passport renewed. I even bought a pair of sunglasses, too expensive for how easily I lose things. I caught myself smiling in the mirror while packing. Is this what it feels like? I thought, to be thought of. The night before the flight, Mom texted, "Let us know when you land, so excited for you, sweetie." I stared at that little heart emoji for a long time. The morning of, I called a cab, wore my favorite travel hoodie. I stood in line at the check-in counter, humming softly, clutching my passport and printed itinerary. I handed them to the agent with a kind of pride I hadn't felt since college graduation. She scanned the papers, her smile faltered. "I'm sorry," she said gently, "this reservation isn't under your name." I frowned. What? That can't be right. But it was. As I stepped aside to recheck everything, I spotted Callie dragging 2 wild-eyed kids, headed for the gate. My beach tote slung over her shoulder. She waved, smiled, like nothing was wrong. Behind her, Mom called out, "We just thought she needed it more, honey, you're always working anyway." I didn't reply, I didn't cry, I turned around and walked out. My suitcase wheels scraping the tiled floor, the printed itinerary crumpled in my hand. I stood frozen on the polished floor, the cool weight of my suitcase handle grounding me, while the air around me buzzed with noise I couldn't quite process. The airline attendant had already moved on to the next guest, leaving me there, blinking at the vacant check-in screen, my name nowhere in sight. I turned, scanning the terminal, unsure of what I expected to find. Maybe a mistake, a fluke, something to make it make sense. And that's when I saw them. Callie's hair was pulled into a messy ponytail. Sunglasses perched high on her head, like some suburban influencer. Her kids were flanking her, one with a stuffed dinosaur, the other already licking a melting popsicle. My beach tote, the one I'd splurged on, was hanging from her arm, like it had always been hers. She didn't see me at first. She was too busy snapping a selfie, lips pursed just so. Then I caught her eye. Her smile didn't drop, in fact, she waved. Behind her, I spotted Mom and Dad standing near the departure gate. Mom was clapping her hands like a cruise ship greeter, Dad adjusting his belt and nodding at something on his phone. I walked over, each step heavy and deliberate. "What's going on?" Callie turned, still smiling. "Oh, hey, I thought you'd be here earlier, gate's about to close soon." I looked at my mother. "You said this trip was for me." She hesitated for half a beat, then did that awful thing where her tone drops to sweet but disappointed. "Oh, Marin, don't be mad, okay? We just thought Callie could really use the break. You're always working anyway, and the kids have never been to the beach. It just made more sense. Made more sense, like I was a line item on a spreadsheet, easily moved around. Callie added, "You know I'd give it back if I could, but the kids are so excited, maybe you can go next time." I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself to speak. A chime echoed overhead. Final boarding call. Callie held up her phone, snapped another picture, and I caught a glimpse of her caption just before she hit post. "Beach time, thanks to my family." I stepped back, opened my own phone, went to the family group chat, paused for a breath. Then quietly hit, leave conversation. And just like that, I was out, no shouting, no scenes, just silence. I walked out of the terminal, the cold air slicing into me the moment the automatic doors opened. Outside, taxis idled, their engines rumbling. The vacation wasn't mine, the ticket wasn't mine, but the rage blooming in my chest, that belonged to me completely. The apartment felt hollow when I stepped inside, not empty, everything was in its place. But the air was different, I was different. I didn't bother turning on the lights, I moved on instinct, straight to the kitchen table where my laptop waited. Like it already knew something was coming. I opened it and began with my bank account. Scrolling through the statements felt like peeling back my own skin. Line after line of transfers, purchases, quiet rescues. $80 for groceries when mom forgot her PIN, $250 for Callie's broken dryer. $400 toward the family vacation fund, yes, that vacation. I opened a blank document and started tallying everything, not in rage, but with the precision of someone collecting evidence. It was worse than I thought. Over the past 3 years, I had given more than $16,000 to my family. Disguised as help, love, being there. Never once had they offered to pay me back. Never once had they asked how I was managing. They just assumed I'd catch them when they fell, and I had, until now. I clicked into my email, searching for the confirmation thread from the travel agent. That's when I saw the forwarded chain buried in my inbox, likely sent to me by accident. Subject line: Vacation guest change, please confirm. There it was, the entire betrayal spelled out, line by line. We've decided to put Callie and the kids on instead of Marin. She won't mind, honestly, she's always working. This way, it's less complicated. Tell her it's a gift, she'll believe it. I stared at the words until they blurred, not because of tears, those had dried up at the airport. But because my body couldn't process how casually they'd removed me. How confident they were in my silence. They didn't just take my seat on a plane, they erased me with a smile. I closed the email, then I opened another browser tab. I created a brand new bank account, separate from every joint setup I'd ever allowed myself to be tied to. I moved every dollar out of the emergency family fund that they'd long forgotten I'd created. I transferred my savings, every cent. Then I logged into my company portal and changed my direct deposit. Removed my parents from my emergency contact list, requested to switch to remote-only status, citing relocation for personal reasons. Next, I went to the USPS website and filed a change of address notice. I didn't even have a new address yet, but I'd find one. I just needed to start moving, outward, away. I looked around my apartment, small, quiet, dimly lit. And for the first time, it felt like a place I was no longer trapped in. This wasn't a meltdown, this was a migration. No text would be sent, no dramatic confrontation would happen. There was nothing left to explain to people who had already decided I didn't matter. They'd replaced me on a vacation, so I was replacing them in my life. Not with cruelty, not with bitterness, just with distance, with absence, with truth. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. There was no scene, no confrontation, no final dramatic phone call. Just quiet decisions, one after another, carried out with a calm I hadn't felt in years. I packed my life into 3 suitcases and a handful of boxes. I left behind the dishes they gave me, the scratchy couch I never liked, the wall calendar with family birthdays circled in red. None of it came with me. I didn't want reminders, I wanted air. The city I moved to was nothing special on the map, but to me, it was freedom. I picked it for its anonymity, somewhere no one would look, nowhere I had history. A middle-sized town with cracked sidewalks, a farmer's market every Saturday, and silence that stretched wide enough for healing. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of a weathered brownstone, with creaky wooden stairs and windows that fogged easily in the mornings. The carpet was old, the plumbing groaned, but the sunlight pulled across the floor at exactly 8 a.m. And the bedroom smelled faintly of cedar. It was imperfect, it was mine. The first thing I bought was a coffee table. It seemed small, but it mattered. In my old life, everything I owned had been filtered through someone else's needs. That table, round, rich cherrywood, delicately carved legs, was chosen for no one but me. It was expensive, I didn't care. I wanted something beautiful that didn't ask to be useful. Then came the plants. Basil, rosemary, thyme, a stubborn little mint that drooped dramatically if I missed one watering. I lined them along the windowsill, their green leaves reaching for the sun. I learned to care for them without resentment. And then came Fig. She was the last kitten in the shelter, gray fur, one torn ear, and eyes that watched everything but rarely blinked. They said she was difficult, I didn't mind. She followed me home in a cardboard box and never left my sight again. My work stayed the same, remote, code-heavy, results-oriented. I logged in, I delivered, I logged out. No performance reviews, no team huddles, no birthday cards signed by people who didn't know me. Each day became a quiet rhythm. Mornings with herbal tea, Fig curled on the couch. Afternoons with emails, keyboards, the occasional walk to the tiny corner cafe. Evenings with slow dinners, books, and the creak of old floors under tired feet. No guilt, no begging, no emergencies labeled as love. They didn't know where I was, I made sure of that. I changed my number, blocked the group chat, deleted the shared calendar. There was no digital trail, only absence. But that absence was not empty, it was deliberate, it was mine. I didn't shout my boundaries, I didn't need to. I drew them with silence, with distance, with the life I built slowly, tenderly, one small choice at a time. And in every corner of that quiet apartment, I was reminded, I didn't disappear, I arrived. The collapse didn't come in an explosion, it came like rot, slow, soft, spreading through the foundation. Long after they'd stopped paying attention. At first, it was little things, inconveniences, then it was unavoidable. Callie noticed first. It was late August, school was starting, and she had a list: lunch money, uniforms, new sneakers, activity fees. Every year, she'd forward it to Mom with a half-joking message, sending this to Marin's inbox. And the money would appear, no questions, no thank you. But this year, nothing. She waited 3 days, still nothing. She sent a casual text to Marin. Hey, babe, any chance you could help with the twins' school stuff again? Just until next paycheck hits. It stayed unread, then marked as delivered, but never opened. 2 days later, her message status changed to blocked. Callie's reaction wasn't worry, it was disbelief, offense even. She's seriously ignoring me? As if Marin's silence was more offensive than all the years she'd quietly funded her sister's life. Callie took to Instagram. Black screen, white font. It's always the ones who preach boundaries that forget who held them up when they were falling. Subtle, but not subtle. Diane saw the story. She also saw the grocery budget tighten, the salon visits disappear, the brunches she couldn't pay for anymore. Those had always been little treats from Marin, a silent thanks for raising 2 daughters. Now those treats were gone, so were the monthly transfers for prescriptions, the gift cards for her Pilates instructor, the cushion that made Diane feel generous without being generous at all. Her friends noticed too. How's Marin doing? They'd ask at church, at book club, in line at the post office. I haven't seen her in a while, did she move? She's just busy, Diane would lie. Then she'd go home and stare at her phone, like it had betrayed her. Martin said nothing, but his habits changed. He stopped talking about his boat. Cancelled the fishing weekend. When the roof started leaking over the back porch, he patched it himself, quietly, clumsily. Because the handyman they'd used was never paid up front, Marin had always handled it. Now, there was no Marin to handle anything. At night, Diane finally asked him, softly, "Do you think she's coming back?" Martin paused, looked down at the mug in his hands. "No," he said. They tried, of course. Callie sent more texts, then emails, then voice notes filled with fake concern. Martin tried once, just one short message. "Just checking in, hope you're okay." No reply. Diane went further. She bought pink stationery, the kind Marin liked as a teenager. Wrote a letter in her neatest script. "We miss you. Things are harder without you. Please come home." She included an old photo, Marin at 10, holding Callie's hand on the beach, both of them sunburned and smiling. She mailed it. It arrived. Marin saw the handwriting, sat with it, and quietly slid it into a drawer, unopened. She didn't need to read it. She already knew how the story went. That winter, Diane posted a Christmas photo with too many chairs and not enough smiles. The caption read, "Family is forever, unless they forget who helped them first." It got 5 likes, a heart from Callie, 1 comment from a cousin. "Hope everyone's doing okay." Still no Marin. And beneath all the silence, they all finally understood what had happened. They didn't just lose a daughter, they lost the woman who covered their cracks, carried their weight, and said nothing. And now that she was gone, the house wasn't broken, it was collapsing. It began as a whisper, a quiet question that tugged at Marin while she stirred her tea one morning. Fig purring softly at her feet. What happens when you stop giving? Not out of spite, not out of anger, just stopping. She opened her laptop, created a blog, no name, no photo, no about me, just a title. What happens when you stop giving? She didn't plan to write more than a single post, but the words spilled out, clean and sharp. She wrote about the airport, the moment she saw her beach toad on her sister's arm. The years of bailing everyone out without thanks, without recognition. She wrote about what it felt like to disappear, not out of rebellion, but out of necessity. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't vengeful, it was truth. She hit publish, then closed the screen and went back to watering her plants. The next morning, the post had over 2,000 views. By the end of the week, it had gone viral. Her inbox filled with strangers who sounded just like her. Some had cut ties with toxic families, others were still trapped, still afraid to speak. But the messages were all a variation of the same thing. I thought I was alone. You said everything I couldn't. You made me feel seen. I forwarded this to my therapist. Marin read them slowly. She didn't need the validation, she needed the connection. She needed to know that silence didn't mean isolation. That stepping away could be an act of solidarity, not shame. So she kept writing. She wrote about guilt as a leash, about the myth of being the strong one, about how boundaries weren't walls, they were exits, clean ones, quiet ones. She titled her posts simply, "The Cost of Being Reliable, How I Paid for Their Peace." No is a full sentence. Her words became ritual, a kind of private exorcism. Each sentence unhooked a little more of what she'd carried. One afternoon, she booked a trip up the coast, nothing fancy, just a few nights by the sea. She packed a notebook, her camera, and nothing that tied her to anyone. She didn't post about it, didn't send updates, she didn't need the world to see her piece to prove it existed. The town was small and quiet, just her type, salt air, a single-used bookstore, coffee that tasted like patience. On the third day, she passed a beach boutique. In the window, a shirt fluttered gently in the wind. White cotton, simple font. This time, it's just me. She stood there for a long moment, then she smiled, turned, and kept walking. Back at her rental, she opened her laptop, wrote another entry, titled it, "I'm not angry anymore, but I'm not coming back." She hit publish, lit a candle by the windowsill, and watched the ocean breathe. No calls, no guilt, no apologies, just space. And for the first time in her life, she didn't have to earn the silence, it was hers. The envelope came on a Thursday, nestled between an electric bill and a flyer for discounted lawn chairs. Pale pink, slightly smudged, addressed in her mother's familiar loopy cursive, no return address. Marin knew what it was the moment she saw it. She didn't open it right away, just placed it on the kitchen counter, like a foreign object, a relic from a past life. It sat there as she went about her evening, folded towels, watered the herbs, fed Fig. The apartment smelled like rosemary and lemon dish soap, calm, clean. She'd built this piece from scratch, and that letter, it didn't belong here. Later, when the sky deepened into indigo and the wind brushed the windows just right, she sat down with a knife and slid it open. Her hands were steady, no fear, just curiosity. The note inside was short, only a few lines. "We miss you. Things are really hard without you. Please come home. Love, Mom." No apology, no acknowledgement, just a request wrapped in softness, like always. A gentle demand disguised as affection. She stared at the words, then refolded the letter, each crease crisp and deliberate. Slid it back into the envelope and tucked it into the drawer beneath her tea towels. Some messages don't deserve a reply, some wounds don't need reopening. She made dinner. Spiced lentils, crusty bread, a glass of Merlot from a local vineyard. Fig curled in the corner, tail flicking lazily with the rhythm of Marin's slow, steady movements. When the meal was done, she lit a candle on the windowsill, eucalyptus and clove. The flame danced in the reflection of the glass, small and bright and alive. Marin sat at her table, her cherrywood table, the one she chose, paid for, and carried up the stairs alone. She looked around at the shelves she built, the walls she painted, the framed prints she picked out because they made her smile. Nothing inherited, nothing given, all of it hers. She took a deep breath and whispered into the quiet, "They didn't lose a daughter. They lost the woman who held everything together." It wasn't bitter, just true. She thought about all the years she spent being the glue, the fixer, the fallback plan. Paying quietly, showing up without thanks, folding herself smaller to leave space for everyone else's mess. And how, when she finally stepped away, the whole house of cards collapsed. They didn't miss her, they missed the things she did, the roles she played, the silence she swallowed. She opened her journal and wrote, "I wasn't the selfish one, I was the supply line. And I stopped pouring myself into their sinkholes." She underlined it twice. The candle burned steady beside her, the room was warm, filled only with breath and quiet and a soft purring beneath the table. The phone stayed silent, and for the first time in her life, that silence didn't ache, it healed.